1492. The fires of the Inquisition blaze across Spain. A people driven from their homes take to the sea. But these exiles don't flee. They fight. Under black flags and Caribbean skies, they strike back at the empire that banished them. Rabbi sailors, Sephardic corsairs, men of Torah and cutlass. They prayed in Hebrew and plundered in Spanish. This is the true story of the Jewish pirates of the Caribbean. Yes, you heard right. Jews, pirates, the Caribbean. It sounds like a punchline from a Mel Brooks movie, doesn't it? But it's not comedy. It's history. Real people, real ships, real cannon fire. And behind the eye patches and the cutlasses were men and women who turned persecution into rebellion and exile into freedom. So grab your spyglass, hoist the anchor, and set your sails to the 16th and 17th centuries, because this, my friends, is the untold tale of Jewish pirates and their battle for survival, revenge, and redemption on the high seas. The year is 1492, a year that changed the Jewish world forever. In Spain, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella signed the infamous Edict of Expulsion. Every Jew in the kingdom must convert to Christianity or leave. Overnight, centuries of Jewish life in Iberia are erased. Synagogues destroyed, books burned, families scattered to the winds. Those who stay are forced to become conversos, that is, new Christians. But the Inquisition is ruthless. Even the faintest rumor that someone still keeps the Sabbath or whispers Hebrew prayers can lead to torture and extinction. Many Jews flee east to the Ottoman Empire. Others head west toward the New World, lured by the promise of opportunity and the shadow of empire. But there's one problem. Much of the Americas is under Spanish control, and for those who fled Spain, that means sailing right back into the jaws of the beast. So what do? They turn to the sea, not as merchants, not as missionaries, but as pirates. Because for a Jew in the 16th century, piracy wasn't just profit, it was payback. Our first hero, or anti-hero, is Rabbi Samuel Pallache. Born around 1550 in Fez, Morocco, to a family of exiled Spanish Jews, Pallache was a man of extraordinary contradictions. A scholar and a rabbi, a diplomat and trader, and, when the occasion called for it, a pirate.
We Jewish pirates had risen from the ashes of the Inquisition, expelled from Spain and Portugal, hunted by inquisitors. We found on the seas a strange kind of freedom, and a chance to strike back at the empire that had driven us out.
He spoke multiple languages, brokered deals between Morocco and the Netherlands, and helped establish one of Amsterdam's first synagogues. But Pallache also took up arms against Spain, organizing raids on Spanish ships and ports. He was, as one historian put it, a rabbi with a rapier. To the Spanish, he was a criminal and a traitor. To the Dutch, he was a valuable ally. And to the Jews of his time, he was proof that exile didn't have to mean submission. Imagine it, a man studying Torah by candlelight one night, then commanding a ship against the Spanish fleet the next. The scholar with a sword, the rabbi corsair. It's the kind of paradox that only Jewish history could produce. By the early 1600s, Jewish refugees were settling across the Caribbean in places like Curacao, Jamaica, and Barbados. These weren't just tropical getaways, they were front lines in a global war between Catholic Spain and the Protestant powers of England and Holland. And where the Dutch and English planted colonies, Jews found refuge. Many became merchants, traders, and shipbuilders. Some served as translators and spies, perfectly fluent in Spanish and Portuguese, the languages of their enemies. But others took a bolder route. They joined forces with buccaneers and privateers, essentially government-sanctioned pirates who roamed the seas, plundering Spanish treasure fleets. For the Jews who'd fled the Inquisition, this wasn't just business, it was justice. As one chronicler put it, these men sailed not only for gold, but for God and for vengeance. So now we come to one of the most legendary figures of all, Moses Cohen Henriques. Henriques was a Sephardic Jew from Portugal who teamed up with the Dutch admiral Ph.D. And together, in 1628, they pulled off one of the greatest maritime robberies in history. You see, off the coast of Cuba, they ambushed the Spanish Silver Fleet, a convoy of galleons loaded with treasure from the New World. It was a masterpiece of strategy. No bloodshed, minimal damage, and an astronomical payout. The treasure, worth over 11 million guilders, that's billions in today's dollars, was hauled back to the Netherlands. And Moses Cohen Henriques, well, he became a legend. He later established his own pirate base on a tiny island off the coast of Brazil. From there, he continued attacking Spanish and Portuguese ships. Was he a criminal? Maybe. A hero? To some, absolutely. But above all, he was a man who refused to kneel to empire. Now, if ever there was a pirate paradise, it was Port Royal, Jamaica. By the late 1600s, Port Royal was known as the wickedest city on earth. Rum flowed like water, brothels outnumbered churches, and nearly every man in town had either plundered a Spanish ship or financed someone who had. And among them, believe it or not, were Jews. After the English seized Jamaica from Spain in 1655, Jewish merchants began to arrive, many from Recife and Amsterdam. They built synagogues, traded in sugar and tobacco, and yes, occasionally invested in pirate ventures. Some provided intelligence, others repaired ships, and some even financed expeditions. Port Royal's Jewish community thrived until the catastrophic earthquake of 1692, when half the city literally sank beneath the sea. Even so, their presence marked something extraordinary. Jews who had once been hunted by the Inquisition now lived openly in the Caribbean of all places, surrounded by pirates, free to worship and trade. Freedom, it turns out, can bloom in the strangest harbors. Let's pause for a moment, because here's the question everyone asks. Could a pirate still be a good Jew? Did they keep kosher, observe the Sabbath, say their prayers while firing cannons? The truth is, we don't know. Sources are scarce. But we do know about this, that many Jewish pirates proudly retained their faith. Some even carried Hebrew amulets for protection. Others were known to wear tzitzit under their coats. And perhaps most interestingly, the pirate code itself, the rules by which pirates governed their ships, had surprising overlaps with Jewish communal law. They elected their captains. They shared the loot equally. They punished theft and mutiny. It was rough justice, yes, but rooted in a sense of fairness and fraternity that echoed the ethics of the Torah. In their own chaotic way, they built floating communities of rebels and dreamers, each ship a miniature society, adrift between lawlessness and morality. As with any pirate tale, myth and fact blur together. Some stories tell of Jewish corsairs who forced captured priests to recite Hebrew prayers at sword point, a grim reversal of forced conversion. Others whisper of hidden Jewish treasure buried on Caribbean islands, marked not by an X, but by a Star of David. And though historians debate the details, one thing is clear: Jews played a far greater role in the golden age of piracy than most people realize. They weren't just survivors of history, they were shapers of it. They built colonies, traded across empires, and occasionally, when history left them no other choice, they drew their swords. By the early 18th century, the age of piracy was fading. European navies grew stronger. Colonies became more organized, and those who once lived by the sword were hunted down or absorbed into legitimate trade. The Jewish pirates of the Caribbean slowly disappeared into history, some settling into merchant life, others vanishing into legend. But their legacy endures, because theirs isn't just a story about piracy. It's about resistance, about exiles who refused to be victims. They took to the seas to fight back against empire and inquisition, to carve out a space where they could be free, if only for a while, under the open sky and endless waves. So next time you hear a story about the pirates of the Caribbean, remember, among the skulls and crossbones, there were also stars of David. Behind the rum and gold and cannon fire, there were men who prayed to the God of Israel, who sailed not just for fortune, but for freedom. They turned exile into adventure, faith into defiance, and the sea into a new kind of promised land. History, after all, isn't always written in stone. Sometimes it's written on the tides. I'm glad you sailed with me on this voyage. So until next time, remember, not all treasure is silver and gold.